Yo, Shortbox Nation, this is Botter, and I'm here to tell you right now that con season starts early this year with the return of Northeast Florida's premier anime, comic book, and sci-fi event, Collective Con. That's right, Northeast Florida's largest pop culture convention returns for its 10th year on March 8th through the 10th at the Prime Osborne Center in Jacksonville, Florida. 10 years of Collective Con, they're pulling all the stops out to make sure this is a can't-miss event. And the guest list they got going, don't even get me started on the guest list. I mean, they've got A-list celebrity guests and voice actors from some of your favorite movies, anime, and video games like Elijah Wood and Sean Ashton, Ray Park, Trisha Helfer, Ross Marquand, Max Middleman, and Bo-Katan herself will be there, Katie Sackhoff. Tell me what other convention is giving you the opportunity to meet Frodo and Sam from Lord of the Rings, Darth Maul, and One Punch Man all under the same roof. Only at Collective Con. And if you're looking to get some of your favorite comics signed, or if you want to get an original sketch from some of the best comic artists in the world, well, you're in luck, because there'll be plenty of comic and creator guests there, like DC comic artist extraordinaire Clay Mann, Harvey Award-nominated illustrator John Taylor Christopher, Marvel and DC cover artist Chris Stevens, and acclaimed Star Wars author Timothy Zahn. They'll all be at Collective Con this year. And if you're looking to bring the family, or if you want to make a weekend out of it, you're in luck, because there'll be so much going on at Collective Con that weekend in the form of vendors, fan panels, video game tournaments, cosplay contests, after parties, and a bunch of fan events. You can purchase single and 3-day weekend passes now using the link in this episode's show notes, or by going to collectivecon.com to book your tickets and hotel. Buy your tickets now, and I'll see you at Collective Con, March 8th through the 10th. Now let's start the show.
Ladies and gentlemen, I present to you the Shortbox Podcast.
You know what Layla would be all right with if she were here right now? Just don't say it. I'm just saying there's one hippo and two of us, and this ship can't be that hard to steer, so... And we don't have to actually,
Have to what? Kill the goddess Talwedit?
No, just, find me a rope and or we can do what she says and, help each other uncover whatever it is that we're hiding, apparently. Stephen, I don't know about you, but my memories are a frickin' mess. Yeah, mine too.
Properly warmed up. We
can get damn! I thought we were talking about Moon Knight. Now we warm it up. Okay.
We can get this episode really started. Let me go ahead and address and welcome our listeners who are tuning in and waiting for us to stop yapping and get to commenting and speculating. Yo, Shortbox Nation, welcome back for the 5th episode of this weekly Moon Knight recap bonus series we've been doing. Today we'll be discussing the emotionally charged Episode 5, titled Asylum. If you're tuning in for the first time, welcome to the show. Thanks for tuning in. My name is Botter Milligan, and I'm joined by my alter identity and much funnier personality, Andrew Torres. What are you going to do when this series is over?
Me? Probably go to the gym finally. I'm putting it off this entire time. I was like, I don't go to the gym because I think I'm going to watch Moon Knight Thursday.
So you're saying
it's Friday. It's Friday. Yeah. I'm like, I don't think I'm going to the gym today. I think I'm going to watch Moon Knight on Thursday.
I like that you're using the Shortbox as an excuse for.
You got to get well rested. Make sure get these.
You're right. This is you getting some reps in the gym right here.
100%.
Well, I appreciate it, man. And listeners, depending on when you're hearing this, Episode 5 is the latest episode of Moon Knight at the time of this recording, so spoiler warning. We'll be talking about important plot points and some nitty-gritty details that might ruin the episode if you haven't watched it already. But that warning specifically applies to our Patreon subscribers who are hearing this on Friday, the same week the episode dropped. But if you're enjoying this commentary, if you're enjoying our commentary on Wednesday for the rest of the Shortbox Nation, this will be more like a recap of events that are about a week old. If you want our fresh reactions the same week Moon Knight drops, consider becoming a Patreon subscriber and avoid having to wait a whole week to hear episodes like this. We normally make the video version of this podcast available the same day we record, and the audio version drops a few days before our usual Wednesday release. You can support the podcast for as little as $1, help us keep the lights on and the show going, and you'll get to enjoy special rewards and perks like early access, bonus content, and the full unedited version of this commentary. You get to hear all of our wild, our hot takes, as well as outtakes that I probably won't keep in the audio version. Now, before we really begin on our commentary for this episode, I want to thank our sponsor, Gotham City Limit Comic Shop, who makes it possible for us to bring you and the rest of the Shortbox Nation this episode. Gotham City Limit is Jackson's premier shop for comics, toys, and collectibles. And even if you don't live in Jax, you can still shop at Gotham City Limit by visiting their website or shopping their marketplace on the Whatnot app, both of which are linked in this episode's show notes. And if you're still in the mood for more Shortbox content after this one, check out the other episode we dropped today alongside this one. It's an episode dedicated to Marvel's Illuminati. It's a mysterious society and group of superheroes who secretly work behind the scenes. There's a good chance we might see some mention of them in the new Doctor Strange movie, so we put a spotlight on the group's comic origin to get an idea of what to expect. And best of all, Ashley and Ed are back for that episode, so give that a listen when you're done with this one. Now that is all out the way, we have the Moon Knight episode pulled up, and we'll be playing it along while we chat. We'll kind of just use that for reference if need be. But like I said at the top, this episode was very emotional and really asked us to kind of dig deep for this one. But if you want to watch alongside with us, you're more than welcome to. Fire up your Disney Plus and get ready to press play. We'll get started in 3, 2, 1. I'm pressing play on the episode right now. All right, Drew, go ahead and kick us off, man. How do you feel about the episode? Like, in few words, how do you feel after watching this?
Unbalanced. Dude, I felt unbalanced, like emotionally unbalanced, which is crazy because this episode was about scales.
Why unbalanced? Like, did it throw you for a loop? Or
We lost a very dear friend in this show, technically for a week until the next episode premieres, and maybe he comes back to life, but we don't know. But for a whole time now, I just believe that our great friend Steven has now passed away.
Do you think that'll be
definitely not going to be permanent? Obviously, it was just it's just sad. It was just definitely like a very, very sad emotional episode because a lot goes on. I mean, you find out all this stuff just to die, but no, you find out that you're dead, but then you really die.
Yeah, or you watch a part of yourself die after going through an experience together to like reconcile and have a lot of very heavy revelations, you know. But the acting left me impressed. The execution left me impressed. Like, I was so emotionally invested in this episode. Like, it was one of those silent viewings where you're just sitting and you're like, wow, there is like, I think you mentioned it earlier, but the pacing of this episode was so good.
To add to what you're saying, the pacing is really, really good. And with this one, like you said, paying attention with so much importance in the sense of like the last 4 episodes, action, action, action. So all this we know is just going to be exposition and narrative, where you're going to be like, all right, this is the information episode where I basically have to like read in what's going on and see exactly. The set designs on this are amazing. Like, there's a reason behind everything is shaped the way that it is. It's supposed to look like something. Like, I can't wait to see if, like, when all the bonus materials come out and they can basically give us, like, insight of things that we missed.
On that topic, real quick, at the end of most MCU series, they'll do the making of or the behind the scenes special. Usually, like, one episode, it's an hour about. I know I watched the one for WandaVision, and then I just kind of missed out on the other one.
That's the only one I've watched, and I actually have to go back and rewatch all of them because I know the Winter Soldier and Captain America or Captain Falcon, what do they call him? Captain America.
Captain America and Winter Soldier, or Falcon and Winter Soldier.
Yeah, Falcon, Winter Soldier. I've seen a lot of that advertised, like the behind, like the Avengers Assemble.
I really wanted to watch the Loki one because that one was another one that had like a lot of cool animation, effects, set design,
and Kang the Conqueror.
Yeah, exactly. I want to see how that one was made, but I will definitely be watching this one. The effects have been fantastic. I thought Tauret, the hippo goddess in this.
Oh, that CGI is unbelievable.
Yeah, the CGI looks like sharp. Like, once again, this is another show that you're clearly like, wow, yeah, this of course has a hell of a great budget. I mean, it's, Marvel and Disney and MCU doing like their thing, but something about this feels so crisp and refreshing, and I think it's because of the setting, that this takes place in with Egyptian mythology being at the center of it. They have really built a world that you can get lost in, Yeah,
and you still don't know where it is in the timeline, which is like not the most frustrating part, but I've still been able to enjoy this show. Can we also talk about if you were to go to your you're in therapy and you realize that your doctor has this statue of a goddess who basically kills people before
they get judged?
You know what I'm saying?
Would that be a warning sign?
That'd be like my warning sign. Like, oh, I shouldn't be here.
But here's what I'm thinking as far as like the settings between the two. The scenes where he's in the asylum with Steven, with Tauret, like that, I think is kind of literal in a sense. he has died, because she does confirm that, hey, you died. You're in the afterlife right now, kind of like in the middle. You're kind of in purgatory until we kind of figure out where you go. Either you're going to go to the field of reeds, or you're going to be stuck in the underworld.
Yeah.
So I think that is kind of literally happening. But the scenes in the asylum with Dr. Harrow, that is probably happening in his mind. And I don't know if it's 100% only in his mind, or if it's also maybe being influenced by Harrow as well. I still don't think Harrow's role in that, or his portrayal as his psychiatrist or therapist, is all altruistic. I think there is still a motive, and maybe Harrow has some sort of influence, but it's confusing, because at times it's almost like Harrow is helping, kind of guiding Mark and Steven through this session, like, because, he advocates for them to speak to one another, and
he tries to speak to them one-on-one, and and he treats them both individually, like, can I speak to Steven? Can I speak to Mark?
Yeah. Okay, so he's helping them kind of come to terms together and work together. But then, I don't know. The way that the editing, too, man, will throw you off, because, you're tracking for 1 minute and they jump, and then you're like, dang, am I supposed to, how am I supposed to correlate these two? And maybe I'm overthinking it at this point, but let's take a step back. And Drew, I want to know, when you think of this episode, what scene or moment immediately comes to mind when you that stands out the most?
When you find out Mark's memory, and you find out how long he's been killing for Khonshu, and he has all their dead bodies just sitting. He's like, I've killed murderers.
Yeah, he kind of justifies
all these people were bad people.
Yeah, that
crooked politician, murderers, monsters.
But that doesn't, and it doesn't mean that he feels like they aren't. I guess he's got some sort of sense of remorse or respect for them, right? The fact that these people are on his mind, that he remembers their names and the situations, kind of speaks to Mark's, I think, a character too, where it's he is violent. And I just realized last episode I was going on about how Mark is not violent, and maybe it's a third personality that's violent, but clearly Mark is definitely violent. He's killed people. But anyways, back to what you're saying. So that scene to you stands out the most.
Oh, yes. What about you?
The one that immediately comes to mind is Mark having that breakdown outside his home during his mother's Shiva. First of all, that's just such a very powerful scene. Because of the abuse that he endured all his life, he doesn't even go to see, pay his respects and say his final goodbyes to his mom. He just can't, reconcile with that. And for just reasons, right? He had been abused his whole life. So it's hard for him to do that. But watching that scene unfold and him walk away, and, he's drunk, and he's just pounding his fist on the concrete.
Yeah, it's the way he falls to the ground. He's in immense pain. It's not like he just beats the ground. It's you can tell all that emotion. That's that anger, that love, that just
it just comes out. And the fact that he's got his keppa in his hand and he's beating that, to me, it's he's also having I think he's also maybe doubting or angry at God too, right? That is a symbolic an item in the Jewish culture, if I'm not mistaken. So for him to even take it off and beat on the ground says a lot of
disrespect. Yeah,
just of that moment, how much he's going through. And then to see him revert to Steven, I think at that moment too, it helps the context of the story, because
and what does Steven immediately do?
Calls his mom.
His mom. Man, so he calls his mom, and you're like,
and he's so endearing about it, right?
He's like, oh, I did it again. I'm so sorry.
He's just having a sweet conversation about her. There's no one on the other line, and immediately, just that contrast and juxtaposition between what you see Mark feeling and then how Steven interprets her, that was heartbreaking, man. And then it also gave me some context as far as the timeline and where we see how we arrived to seeing Steven first, and how Steven kind of has been living. And in my mind, it's when his mom passed away, Mark took the back seat. Steven got to be in the driver's seat, and it sounds like for the most part, Steven got to live his life, right? Mark even mentions, you got to live a simple, happy life. You didn't have to, you got a positive view of mom, and you don't even know that she's dead. So in my mind, it's Steven got to live a life, and Mark probably still, maybe took over at nighttime, thus, the protector of the travelers at night, the whole Khonshu thing. So he did his business at night. Steven lived a normal life. I would be curious to see, I wish they would have maybe hinted at where Layla at this point, like where his marriage with Layla is. Like, you know, it definitely sounds like they were married prior to his mom passing away, but I'm not quite sure about that.
Yeah, and it's not a memory here. Like all these it's not a memory of like marketing. This is all memory of him and trauma and stuff that's happened to him.
Yeah.
And I think this is, like you said, like the literal sense, like right here, they're in his heart right now, because that's what they have to do. They have to balance the scales of their heart to like...
Yeah, go through these memories that, you know, Mark clearly hasn't like fully addressed and like really sort out, which I was going to say has been a common trend with the MCU shows, right? Like it feels like when we get to the penultimate episode, so like the second to last episodes, we get a very introspective episode. And then the one that stands out, well, there's a few that stand out, right? Like WandaVision, second last episode, she goes through her, you know, her childhood. She retraces her steps of how she became, you know, how she lost her parents, and she has to address that. Loki, I think the second to last episode is him speaking to his other versions, right? So like he's having like that discussion within himself and finding himself. And we get that here. So this didn't catch me off guard that episode 5 would be a very introspective character kind of study episode.
Yeah, character driven.
But I will say what really kind of caught me off guard a little bit was that they decided to go through with like portraying it this heavy. Like, you know, there was no real comedy in this. I don't think I might have laughed when Steven punches Mark and he's like, you know, like the fact that he still continues to be like, you know,
I can't do it.
yeah, like, you know, those little quips. But other than that, this was just a very heavy episode, and
no smiles here. There's nothing to smile about in this episode.
There was no awkward or ill-timed joke. You know, sometimes MCU likes to break up the tension with like just a joke, and sometimes they go a little overboard because you're like, man, just let the moment kind of breathe. But I felt like they were kind of honest, and they stuck to their guns as far as like, hey, we're going to portray or get the point across of like how trauma, you know, whether it be like the death of a loved one or like emotional and physical abuse, can really like damage people in more ways than just leaving like a physical bruise. You know, like the whole series has been a very enlightening in regards to and I can only personally speak, but like portraying the struggles of people with this mental illness. And it's made me much more aware of and like empathetic to it too, man, to like see like how it could be triggered and how like people have to live with it, how it impacts like your relationships and your life in general. I got to give like this series kudos as far as like, you know, having that very serious layer. So I'm talking way too much. Feel free to jump in.
No, it's okay. Like I'm trying to understand. I know in that every scene, did you notice that in every memory they're going into or following, there's scales in the background at some point? Like
that's been a common theme.
If you look at any point when they're in a different room, you'll see the scales somewhere in the background trying to balance. Yeah,
balance has been a big theme. You're right. That's been like a major theme throughout the series, you know, because you're dealing with a very unbalanced character this whole time. And this episode is all about kind of finally addressing, like, will he find balance or not? I know that we're not doing play-by-plays, but one thing that is passed on the screen that I do want to bring up is that this very ominous moment of Steven kind of watching the death of his, you know, his younger brother, or, you know, watching the death of Roro, Mark's brother. But when he steps on those bird bones, there's very ominous music. Clearly, like, you know, you can draw a parallel to Khonshu, who is literally a fucking skeleton bird. Mm-hmm. It makes me curious if maybe we'll figure out if Khonshu had anything. I'm curious if Khonshu has anything to do with the death of his brother. That'd kind of be in line with the comic series. Not literal, not the sense that Khonshu has something to do with the death of his brother in the comics, but Khonshu in the comic books knew about Mark at a young age, knew he had DID, and like kind of groomed him from a young age. Like he knew like, oh, this kid is going to be my avatar. I'll just keep an eye on him. Mm-hmm. I wonder if they'll play into that.
But this is going to be the one of those, like, you were just, like you said, like from the moment that your brother died and this happened, like that's when I would see you. Oh, but you think he's the one that caused it? You don't think it's like it happened and then he influenced it?
I'm not sure. I mean, that I just think that was a very like on the nose moment of him stepping on those bird bones, and maybe it's just, you know, maybe I'm reaching on that, but just curious, just curious. In regards to the comic book, man, like I will once again emphasize, if you are listening and you haven't read I think it's 2016, right? The Jeff Lemire, Greg Smallwood Moon Knight run from, I believe, 2016, and you've enjoyed Moon Knight so far, especially this episode. Read that series. I think it's a 12 or 16 part series.
And it's easily collected now. They collect it as an ultimate collection.
If you were to type in on Amazon, Moon Knight, Jeff Lemire, or something
or your
like
library card.
Or your library card.
You can get it at the library app. Easy peasy.
Or FREE. Because this episode lifts a lot from that in the sense of like the insane asylum, multiple parallel things going on, like, scenes taking place in the asylum, and then, Mark kind of figuring out what's reality.
Yeah, and also to add to what B is saying, if you want to see like a very beautiful rendition of Moon Knight and just how the art plays, like Greg Smallwood is not somebody to like kind of shake your finger at or just like not pay attention to like what he does for anything. It's so crazy, like, they do it panel by panel, but it's amazing to me how much like emotion that Greg Smallwood can pull out of people, out of those panels. So it's definitely very color driven, and it just feels like it just has that Moon Knight vibe to it. You're like, dang, like this feels like Moon Knight.
Yeah.
So yeah, where are we at right now?
As far as the episode goes, we're watching the funeral scene, of his brother and his mom kind of finally breaking.
Yeah, we talked about that already. Where's the dad in all this?
Bro, he is trying to keep this household together. He's got an angry, depressed wife, and same thing with his son, and they're both at conflict. Like, that is an interesting position to be in.
Mm-hmm. And then they're doing a lot of time jumps for this. This isn't like 1 year. Like, you're getting like different parts of like, all right, his brother passed away, and like he's like, oh, like once again.
Yeah, I try to count the candles when he's blowing them out. I think this takes place between like the ages of him being 10, 11, and 12, and then of course they jump into him being like a young man, and then eventually in the military.
Like, all right, well, I'm out of here. I'm just gonna go do my own thing, and then I'll be back, or I won't be back. We'll see how it goes.
Well, I want to shift gears. This is definitely like the origin episode that we've been waiting on. So not only do we get an understanding of Mark's childhood and his past, his relationship with his mom, but we also get to see, and I felt like in a very short but streamlined and efficient way of showcasing his origin as Moon Knight. Let's talk about that sequence in particular. What did you think about the execution of him becoming Moon Knight? Like, seeing like how he made the deal with Khonshu.
If you want my like just jokey, it was cool. It was cool to see, but it was very, very quick. It was funny. It was just very much like, hey man, listen, you're dying. He's like, what was that? He's like, listen, I got you. I can fix you up. I can patch you up. You'll get a cool suit. Let me sign you. And be your manager. You know what I'm saying?
He signed him to a shitty contract.
Yeah, he's just like, I know you're independent artist right now working on this like that, but know what?
The only benefits he got was like health benefits.
That's it.
He's like, the pay sucks. There's no bonus. My PTO is terrible.
Dude, okay, but the way Khonshu does like his announcement, that was a mic drop to me where he's like, yo, ride. Because you hear it.
Become my Moon Knight.
Yeah, and it's like, oh, that's cool the way he said it. Because you felt like that epic, like, just like, yo,
the music was cool. The way the suit like formed on his formed him.
You're like, oh, okay, cool. You're like, all right, damn. Like Batman doesn't have shit like that. Like Batman has to put it on. Like he has to put this on, and then he has to put his gloves on, and then he has to like do
meticulous.
The pant thing.
Yeah, like, imagine if like one of like a regular guy was trying to get dressed as Batman fast too. Like how clumsy that would be.
Oh man,
Moon Knight's like.
Yo, this is Botter. Sorry for interrupting this episode, but I'll keep it brief. I wanted to let you know about a massive sale we have going on over at the Shortbox store on all of our merchandise and apparel. That's theshortboxstore.bigcartel.com. You can now save 20% off your entire order using the discount code YOO, Y-O-O. So if you've been waiting for the right time to finally buy that gauntlet snapback, or if you ever wanted to buy any of the shirts you see me wear on the podcast, well, now's your chance to get them for a steal. We still have a few sizes left of everything, but they won't last long, and once they're gone, they are gone. And then I mentioned that all of our apparel is screen printed on high quality material. None of that heat transfer or direct to garment stuff. Our shirts are some of the most comfortable ones you'll ever wear, and the hats look even better in person. So wear your support for the Shortbox Nation proudly, knowing that you're going to look damn good doing it. Get to theshortboxstore.bigcartel.com as soon as you can, and don't forget to use that discount code YOO, Y-O-O, to save 20% off your entire order. All of this information can be found in this episode's show notes if you want to get there faster. Thanks for not pressing fast forward. Now back to the show.
It's just like, you're like, damn, that's dope as hell. Yeah. No problem. I mean, I thought it was very well done. It was paced. It was cool. Of course, it would have been in a cave. like a frat party gone wrong.
But they hit all the, and I mean, like I said, I bring up the comic book references and tie-ins just because I am curious to see how they pull and rework. I'm not asking them to be beholden to panel by panel, but for the most part, they took the regular origin and made it work, right? Like they mentioned Bushman, they mentioned his military past. They
a deal
execute
gone
that
wrong.
scene.
Yeah, it was a deal that went wrong, and then he basically
not really a deal that did wrong, but Steven is telling him like, "Hey, man, Khonshu took advantage of you." And I'll admit, at first, I was like, "Well, I mean, the deal was that he gets to it's either live or die." Like I guess maybe what Steven was bringing up was like he probably wouldn't have given you that deal, and you could have unfortunately, found peace in death. Khonshu only gave you that deal because he knew you were easy to manipulate, and he probably wouldn't have given that to anyone else. Clearly saw that Mark had some illness going on, and he could manipulate that, and which is in line with Jeff Lemire's run big time. But it makes sense, right? Like Khonshu is a god. Like he don't give a shit about
No, you're
his
just
servants.
like, he's quick. You're like blink of an eye. It's like, all right, listen, I've lived for millennia. You are just but like you're the 30 seconds on a microwave button.
That was a hell of a comparison.
Yeah, but that's exactly what it is. 30 seconds. It's like start. It's like 30 seconds, and then it's just like boom, it's done. You're like, that to me is 100 years of your life.
That's a good point.
Like, all right, man.
All right, I'll give you that.
I heat up hot pockets to your life.
I'll give you that. How cool is it? The commentary is fun to watch, man. I know that I think we've talked about how at this point, even though they are two different sides of the same coin, like Mark and Steven are technically the same person. It's they've done a really good job of treating them as two unique individuals. Which I mean,
Two-Face is not this compelling. But I'm being honest. Like Two-Face probably suffers with that. He has two different identities that he works with. He has the harm things like that. But it's not that I believe Mark's and Steven's like duality of struggle of like this good against evil, but it's not even good against evil. He has to do Mark has to be the evil side, and then Steven's going to be the good guy.
For Mark, Steven is like his innocence, his childhood. If the events of his brother and his mother never happened, like that is his best case, best life, given life or an identity. So it's like you're really watching this duality have to work together. But also, what I was trying to get at is
sorry.
Not at all.
Mark.
Not at all. What I was trying to get at is that
Mr. Mark.
Yeah, you're full of quips today.
I'm trying.
I get you that. What I was trying to get at is that these scenes, it's fun to watch Oscar Isaac play two parts of himself, right?
You think he got double paid? He's like, yeah, I'll do it as Mark.
I feel like Oscar
But
Isaac's,
if you want this other guy, I'm gonna.
I feel like Oscar Isaac's contract, and that's why we haven't seen the third personality. MCU just couldn't afford it. They were like, we'll just leave Jake out. And I do want to get to the third personality here in a second, but I'll finish this train of thought in saying that, you could view it as two people watching the same events, but when you really look at it,
I love this part,
and understand that Steven is a different side of Mark, he's still Mark, right? So the fact that he has two different points of views to talk about these memories. It has been fun in that exchange where it's like in this scene right here of Mark, becoming Moon Knight. Steven offers that insight to Mark that, hey, he was manipulating you, but Mark couldn't see that, in the moment. And then, and when I mentioned the scene where where Mark at his mother's funeral at his mother's Shiva, Mark and Steven watching the same thing, and it's hard for Mark. That was the memory he didn't want Steven to see, but Steven reacts with forgiveness, and he tells him you're not a bad person. It wasn't your fault. That's essentially just Mark telling himself that via a different vehicle. And I think it's just very powerful, right? To watch him find that forgiveness within himself. Mm-hmm. Granted, it had to be done via a different personality, but how many times, I think we can all relate to where it's you might be looking for forgiveness or acknowledgement or something from somewhere else, outside of yourself. And really, sometimes all you need is just to forgive yourself. Look within and be the person to forgive yourself to move on.
That was beautiful. How am I supposed to follow up with that? It's yeah, man, his moon rings are cool. But no, I understand. What was the thing that you said? Mark has already lived it. He's reliving it, and Steven is living it for the first time.
Yeah, so Mark is Mark has already lived all this. That's why he knows what memories are what. Steven is not. Steven, and I think Steven is kind of represents the viewer, right? Like, we haven't seen this unfold. Like, he is our vehicle to getting Mark's origin. But that doesn't mean that it's not as impactful still for Steven, because he is living this for the first time. Like, how jarring was it and like just kind of like sentimental was it to watch Steven watch his birth or his origin, right?
Mark is trying to protect Steven. That's one thing that I always think is awesome. Is like Steven's like, no, what's going on? He's like, listen, you don't understand. Like, you couldn't possibly understand. And Steven's like, I think I can, mate. We're the same person. Like, what you can't take, I can take.
Yeah. But they both end up consoling each other. Like, it's not just Steven, telling Mark, walking him through things and helping out. But Mark also helps Steven out too, and that's
keeps the lights on. He's the one that's making all that money, keeping Steven in a nice, lush apartment that he's in.
True.
Steven just wakes up and he's like, "Man, did I get all this? Where did I get all this stuff at?
Oh, I got a new fridge. Oh,
that's
awesome.
pretty cool."
But once again, what I'll say one more time about this Asylum scene, as I try to like work it out and watch it for the third time, he snaps back to the Asylum. I think any time that he just can't take it anymore, like he can't comprehend. Like when, because he's back in this Asylum scene right now for the second time, as Mark is pushing him to go to that last door to visit the memory of his mother's.
Like where it all went down.
Yeah, where it all went down, So it kind of goes back to what Harold had mentioned about this being his organizing principle. When Mark can't fully comprehend or make sense of it, I think he goes into like, we get these scenes here of him like mentally kind of working out, and Harrow is like playing that therapist role where he's literally walking him through it. So once again, I still don't know how I feel about Harrow and his role in this, if it's all altruistic, if this is even Harrow in any regard. It's going to be interesting to see how they pay that off.
Yeah, and here's the thing. We don't know how these astral planes really work and the whole thing behind it, because like one thing that we do learn is the fact that like wherever he's at, it's mention of their version of an astral plane, and we know how that looks.
Yeah, a version of it's with it. Tarek says, she said, "This is an afterlife, not the afterlife."
It's like, this ain't the party. This is just like the pre-party.
Pre-game.
This is pre-game. We're going to tailgate, and then after that, we're gonna go to the big game.
Yeah. Which we've been. I think it was like episode 3 that when we were introduced to the other. The Ennead, the other Egyptian gods in the MCU, that we were talking about how Marvel has the MCU has slowly been hinting at and building like the don't know the word I'm looking for right now, but they're building this realm of gods, right? Like they're making you believe that all of the gods in the MCU might either be related, connected, maybe separate, but connected in a certain way. But the fact that she brought that up, we know that in some way Black Panther or Wakanda in general is tied to this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And they try to keep it in the same realm of stuff of like, I love all the like the symbolisms of it like ties to whatever that realm is of their believability. One thing I also do like is the Stephen Grant poster and how it literally says like
when in danger, don't fear, Stephen Grant is near.
That's what I'm saying. So like it's literally like why he was created in the first place.
This episode to me explains everything, right? Like as far as like all of the symbolism, some of like the reasons why, he named him Stephen Grant, the reason why he's into Egyptian mythology. Like this episode was the last piece you needed to kind of fit in like why a lot of things are going on.
Wait. Hold on one second. So let me get this straight. Stephen Grant, so his mom walks in and he's already Stephen and she's hitting him as Stephen?
I was a little confused by that.
So that's what I'm saying. Like he was created. What I got out of it was Stephen was created to take all the blunt of the abuse.
No,
are you sure?
Stephen doesn't have any recollection of his mother in a negative light. He's shocked at all of this. And Mark in this speech that we're watching right here is that he's telling her that, or telling him that you were created to escape that. There's a reason why you got to live a normal, simple life, why you still think mom is great.
Okay. I got to rewatch this again and again just so I can like clear it. Because this is one of those like you can read too deep into like what a lot of the stuff is.
Yeah, and I'm trying not to, but granted, like when we do these episodes, it kind of forces us to maybe like overanalyze some scenes, but some of that is the fun of it. And I'm very curious and excited to see how they wrap it up, and if they're going to leave anything loose. I was thinking that maybe they would address it in this one is the third personality that they've been kind of hinting at, like they didn't mention the third sarcophagus in the last episode.
No, they didn't.
the words Jake or Lockley haven't been brought up at all. I've seen more YouTubers and friends bring it up than the actual show itself, and I'm curious to hear your thoughts on whether you think we're going to see a third personality or not. Whether we're going to get a Jake Lockley.
The third personality is going to be Mephisto, as far as I'm concerned. It's Mephisto, and he's a third personality. That's like where I'm at right now. Kudos to them for teasing that.
They are good at, I don't want to say trolling, but they are good at putting, getting talking points going, like keeping the conversation going and the analysis and like guessing going, right? At this point, would you want to see like
season 2 of Moon Knight?
Oh, come on, man. That's an easy question. I wasn't even asking. I'm not going to ask you stupid questions.
Yeah, okay.
But would you want to see, do you think we're going to get any more information on that? Because that could be something they carry over to a third season. Is like a
third season, the third one comes.
Yeah, or a second.
No, fuck that. No, second season is about the first two. The third season, that's how you bring the third personality back. Yeah.
I got you. And maybe you almost have to handhold it. Maybe that is like.
What if this ends on a cliffhanger?
Yeah.
Do you get upset?
Not at all. Not if I know a second season's coming out. Because if a second season comes out, maybe that is the plot point where it's like they are exploring. Hey, there's a third personality neither one of us knew. And let's figure out where this came from. Yeah. Now you have to explore Mark's past even more.
This episode, the next episode ends with the third coffin opening. And you're like, dang! And then that's how
That's a mic drop right there.
That's it. That's how it is. The third coffin is going to open and you're going to just see a hand.
Yeah. On the topic of next episode, let's discuss some of the plot points and threads that ideally you would like to see them wrap up. Like, what's still open? In your mind, what is still an open plot point or something they need to address?
Who's the villain in all this? That's what I want to know. I want to know who is literally behind everything.
You don't think the obvious answer is Harrow or Ahmet?
Well, at this point, yeah, I mean, I guess so. I really don't know. You had made a good point. You're like, I don't really need this big, epic, like, final Avengers battle. What I kind of wanted it to be is like a battle of wits. Like, I don't need all that stuff. Like, I would kind of like just like a nice little like mind over like heart body type of thing. And I'm just like, oh, all right, cool. Yeah, I'm down for that. So
do you feel satisfied with what you got so far?
Yes, because at the same part, it's like we know that right now, because this could just be a one-shot Marvel TV show. I mean, granted, we know for a fact that like this character is way too popular that they're not going to cash in later on that money. But for the time being, like I'm okay with it just ending the way that it is. If it ends on a bummer, then it ends on a bummer.
What is a bummer to you? Like, what would be a bummer ending?
Oh, a bummer ending would honestly be like, yo, he's actually dead, or he's like super dead. Doesn't come from this, or like this entire time he was been like in a sane asylum and like nothing's changed.
They mentioned a few things that got me thinking. All right, this will be in the next episode. The fact that it looks like Harrow's plan is already going as planned. Harrow's plan of resurrecting Ahmed and waking her up is going. I guess,
already started.
Has already started.
Yeah.
We see those souls entering the underworld, prejudged. Even Tawret it says, this is evil. Like she paints a picture of like, hey, this is worst case scenario.
She's saying it's evil because she wants to go home. She like, as soon as she drops them off, she has to go and grab those other bodies.
True.
And basically like, damn, I'm working tonight.
They mentioned, can you get word out to Layla? We don't really see Tawret go do that, but maybe she does it off screen. And maybe next episode is like, while Steven was dealing with this and balancing his scales, this is what was going on in the literal sense. Like the I guess the, real life was that Layla finds one of the gods or uses Tawret to awaken Khonshu. I wonder if her and Khonshu have a conversation, maybe about her becoming an avatar. But I think we'll at least get that. And I believe there are some teaser trailers out now that show like Khonshu fighting something. So that might also...
the teaser trailers already have coming out?
Yeah, they usually do like a teaser trailer for the next episode.
Oh, okay, because I haven't been able to see that. Every time I finish Disney Plus, they're like, hey, you want to watch Eternals? I'm like, no. Like, can you like suggest anything else? Like, I don't want to watch Eternals. Like, hey, Eternals, That would be really exciting if we start episode 6 with just Layla doing some stuff.
And they don't quite address that, Steven is trapped forever in the underworld and Mark has made his way to the Field of Reeds. Now, I think I would put money that we start with Layla, or we start with like what Harrow's been up to. I think we'll get either or, and then eventually, I think maybe by the middle,
we'll see the return. Because you also got to remember, they got to figure out a way. Mark has made it to the Field of Reeds. Technically, he's in like Egyptian heaven.
Yeah, he made it to Valhalla, like his own version of Valhalla.
So he's going to have to come to the decision of, do I want to stay here and have eternal peace, or do I go back to Earth and I, finish what started and, go help, go help people, because it sounds like in this episode he's kind of accepted all this, and it's Steven, that other side of him, that optimistic, kind soul that's like, no, like there is so much at risk here, and he keeps bringing up Layla, right? Like I think we said episode 4 was kind of funny that like, Steven is going after his girl, but you got to, once again, you always got to keep in mind that Steven is Mark, just a different side of him. So of course, like Layla is at the top of his mind. Like, of course he cares for her. So I think Steven's going to be the key to bringing Mark back to Layla, and like maybe hopefully them kind of repairing that relationship. But regardless, it'll be fun to see how they convince Mark to leave heaven to go back to, becoming Khonshu's servant.
Nah, man, this is what happened. He ends up in the reeds, and this is what's gonna happen. This is my theory right now. He ends up in the reeds, and then when it's in there, like when he like walks up in there, he looks to his right and he sees fucking Thanos like cooking his food with his arm all fucked up.
What is Thanos doing in the Field of Reeds?
I'm saying, like, he's just like, yo, Thanos died. He gets his little goodbye or whatever. I just think, like, yo, what if Mark ends up he's not in the Field of Reeds. He's just on the planet that Thanos was, that wanted just peace and quiet. And then Mark just shows up and he looks. That's insane.
You're saying eventually Mark walks through the Field of Reeds and he sees, what if they do a little Easter egg and you see like the Thanos scarecrow, and you're like, and Mark looks at it, there's a story there, but I'm not going to ask.
He's like, okay. He's like, what are these stones?
As funny as that would be,
it's not going to happen.
I think that would, I don't know, man, hold out hope, bro. You never know, hold out hope. But I think that would be the ultimate sacrifice, where Mark has finally has balanced his soul. He's addressed these things that he's kept close to the chest, and he's got to make a decision. Either live in eternal bliss and happiness, or go back to becoming the servant of Khonshu for the greater good on Earth. I think that will be the big kind of hero moment. I think that's when we'll see a different version of Mark. I'm going to go back because I know I've addressed these issues and I can come back stronger,
Mm-hmm.
So we'll see how that goes. With that being said, Drew, the episode's pretty much wrapped up. What is your overall rating for this episode based on our 8 lunar cycle rating system?
8.
Full 8?
Yeah, well, full 8. This episode was just like, I didn't want anything more from this episode or anything less from this episode. Oscar Isaac acted his butt off of this scene. This episode had nothing funny about it.
I'm kind of mad they didn't at least give you a little warning, like a little black screen comes up and it's like, hey, grab a box of tissues. Grab a box of tissues. Get a therapist appointment going.
You're going to need this.
Call your mom. Like all of that. I, too, will join in and give this a waning crescent moon rating.
Full moon.
Full 8. A full moon, yeah.
Full moon.
8. But the fact that they really just focused on exploring this character and dealing with such heavy topics, and I think in a very compelling way, was a lot of fun. There's no way that you don't walk out of this feeling something or thinking about, something, whether it be like, what it's like to have DID, or, your own relationship with your parents, or your own trauma. Like it gave a lot of food for thought, and it was just strictly all action influence, not action influence,
just narrative influence.
Narrative, great acting, and beautiful, like as far as like just editing too, man. The way it edits, it just keeps you on your toes. It doesn't ever feel boring or drags along.
Yeah,
so.
and like as we read a lot of comic books, and it goes about to show that we read a lot of 6-issue miniseries, 5-issue miniseries. These Marvel movies feel like there's 6 episodes, but to me it's like, oh, this feels like the 6-issue.
Yeah, it's a limited run, man.
Limited run, it's dope. And we know how, like, with reading comic books, like issues, like if it's like 5 and 6 are the ones in the comic books that are always giving you like the information that you need.
Yeah.
So
yeah, they
just
push it
to
along.
stay on that theme with that.
So we are excited. I think it's safe to say we are both excited to see how Moon Knight wraps up.
And then immediately Doctor Strange 2 comes.
Yeah. Matter of fact, I mean, when this episode drops on Wednesday, it'll be the release of the Moon Knight finale. So I'm curious to see how much of the things we talked about either come to fruition or, we're completely wrong.
Dude, if Thanos shows up, I'm going to call you immediately.
Oh, dude. We are dropping that episode. We won't even drop a full episode. We'll just drop a 2-minute episode that's like, we were fucking right. So, anyways, I will look to our listeners and I'll ask them. Like I said, by the time this episode comes out on Wednesday, the finale will have come out. I would love to hear your thoughts on the season, what you thought of Moon Knight as a whole, what you thought about this episode in particular. If you want to talk about episode 5, share your thoughts, comments, opinions. Correct us if we said anything too outlandish. That works too. Shoot us an email at theshortboxjacks@gmail.com. We'll read it on a following episode. Thank you so much for hanging out with us this week, but it's time to close out this show. If you're still in the mood for more Shortbox content, don't forget to check out the other episode that we dropped today for a Doctor Strange comic spotlight celebrating the upcoming movie release, and for a deep dive on Marvel's secret society of superheroes called the Illuminati. Ashley and Ed are back for that episode, so cue that up next. And of course, later this week, we'll record our Moon Knight finale review that will drop on Patreon first before we release it to everyone else next Wednesday. If you want to hear all of our episodes the second we post them before anyone else, consider becoming a Patreon subscriber and avoid having to wait a whole week to hear from us. Sign up for our Patreon using the link in this episode's show notes and support the podcast for as little as $1. Go to patreon.com/theshortbox right now, or click the link in this episode's show notes to sign up and enjoy special rewards and epic bragging rights when you become a member of the Shortbox Elite. In the meantime, give us a follow on social media if you're not part of the bandwagon already. But most importantly, take care of yourselves. Have a great day. Have a great cry at that too. After all this episode, have a great cry. And please continue to make mine and yours Shortbox. We'll talk to you soon. Peace.